Hi there, readers. Today, our lesson is on noticing characters change and how they grow over time. So, throughout a story, our characters can change in lots of different ways. They can change physically, like how they look, they can change their attitudes, but today we're going to focus on personality or trait change. Okay? This is actually the most common change that you'll see in fiction stories. So we're going to look for how are their traits changing. So some examples of trait change could be someone starting off really greedy to being more generous, someone being very rude to being kind, someone being fearful to brave. Okay? So when we look at this anchor chart, how a character changes throughout the story, we have the beginning, we have the middle, and we have the end. Okay, just like this is our plot line. So in the beginning, the reader learns the main character's strengths and weaknesses. Like, what are some good traits that they have? What are some negative traits that they might have? Because this shows us where they need to grow. Then in the middle of the plot line, probably in the rising action, there's a lot of events that occur that cause the main characters to kind of think about life differently. Think about any movie that you've watched. You'll probably notice this. I always think of Star Wars, and I think about Luke Skywalker and how in the beginning he may not have been this strong warrior, but then he meets Yoda and things start to happen, and he starts to be in these situations that cause him to look at things differently. And then finally, in the end of our plot line, the main character shows growth. So the big question I have for you is, what is causing this character to change? And think about you. How are you changing from, let's say, August or September of the school year to the middle of the school year to the very end of the school year? And not even just a school year, just in your life, to how have you changed and what has caused that change? Those are the questions that I want you to ask yourself as you read fiction. All right, so a couple of things I want to show you. Like us as people, characters are very complicated and very complex, right? I would never say that you are just this one trait and that's it. Or if you are that trait, I'm always asking, like, how did they get to be that way? Why? We're just all complex creatures. So there's lots of reasons. So if you see a character being a bully, ask yourself why. What's going on there? If you see someone in real life being a bully, ask why. Because, like I said, characters are very complicated, very complex. There's always a reason. And I think about Darth Vader. Darth Vader, why was he evil? There was a reason. And if you watch the movies, you'll totally know. All right. Another thing I want to make sure you know is characters change not just like that, like super fast in like a lightning second. It changes over time. It takes the beginning, the middle, the end of the book for characters to change. It just never happens that quickly. And think about you. You're probably not being more responsible because it was like one day and your parents said one thing or your teacher said one thing. It takes time and lots of practice to become a different person. All right. Characters don't have to always change dramatically in a story, okay? Sometimes characters just change a little bit, they move the needle just a tiny smidge. And so that's still change, right? It's still character development. So, for example, a character might be shy, but then they move to not just conquering the world and like being like this brave lion. They might be just a little bit less shy or just a tiny smidge braver. So, notice that change can also be a tiny bit too. So the big question I want you to really think about as fifth graders is, what are the reasons for the change? So here's some ideas. These are not all the reasons, but here's some. Someone else helped them. We call those mentor archetypes or mentor characters or a counselor character. Maybe it's a good friend that helped them. Maybe it's like a family member or a friend character or somebody that they were around that served as a mentor. They gave them advice or they had an aha moment. in Star Wars, it was definitely Yoda that helped Luke Skywalker because he gave him a lot of life lessons. Another reason for major change could be a major event happened. Usually, a lot of major events can change people. Like, if you had a near death experience, I bet you that will change you. It'll make you realize that life is short and that you have to do things differently. So, notice that major events always spark change, whether it's for the good or sometimes for the worse. Another reason for change is the character kind of just like had an aha moment inside of themselves. Maybe they just had time to think and process and realize within themselves, I need to change. And they have their own aha moment. So, those are some possible reasons why characters change. What I want you to do today as you read and practice is ask yourself, what kind of change are they going through? What's the evidence for that from the beginning, middle, and end? And why? What's the motivation or reason for this change?